car rallies, exhibitions, and competitions for transport gasifiers went on all the time. There were 10 rallies of gasifier vehicles in France in 1924 to 1939. In 1927, in France, there was a big competition rally of military trucks with carrying capacities from 3.5 to 5 tons equipped with gasifiers. 17 companies participated in the contest. Cheap oil flooded the market at that time. Pennyworth gasoline and diesel made gasifiers not particularly interesting financially in 1920 to 1938, but the inventors did not stop their work. On August 3, 1926, the French government reduced the gasifier vehicles tax by 50%. In 1928, the inventor Gasifier made a breakthrough transverse gasifier. Imbert was the first to patent it, McDonald was the first to improve it, and Gasifier perfected it and put it into mass production. It became the most convenient and popular gasifier both then and today. The only disadvantage is that it only runs on charcoal. The Japanese government paid a citizen 300 yen for the purchase of a gasifier vehicle. In 1929, there were already 1,880 gasifier vehicles, 2/3 of which belonged to the French Army. Even though Imbert made a wood downdraft gasifier in 1924 to 1926, it was not perfect until 1931 to 1933. A fateful meeting between Imbert and the talented entrepreneur Linneborn took place in 1931 at an exhibition where Linneborn was delighted with Imbert's gasifier and subsequently bought the rights to produce gasifiers from him. Thus, the German division Imbert Köln was established while Imbert had his own headquarters in Saarland, France. From 1931 to 1939, Imbert Köln adapted and improved the wood gasifier. Linneborn bought the license to produce gasifiers everywhere except France. In France, they were produced by Imbert. Soon the production of Imbert gasifiers started in Germany. Wood-fired trucks and buses appeared on the streets. As it often happens, the public became cognitively disoriented and the daily newspapers soon published mocking reports that drivers would cut down all forests and roadside trees, as well as fences. Of course, this did not happen. The momentous move of the center of the world's gas generation industry to Germany began. But not immediately. While the development of gasifiers was vital and pushed hard in France, Germany was not so much dependent on hydrocarbons. While dozens of companies were producing and selling gasifier vehicles across Europe, there were only 88 approved transport gasifiers in Germany in 1938, even though this country began subsidizing gasifier production in 1935. This happened thanks to the Forestry Committee. Wood sales fell, so it was decided to sell wood for firewood-powered vehicles. The tax was reduced for vehicles running on unsaleable fuels like wood, anthracite, lignite, coke, etc. by 50 to 75%. But mostly wood was used. At the same time, the tax on imported liquid fuel was raised. The second man in the state, Germany's chief forester Hermann Göring, was responsible for this. Some people wondered how quickly the law was implemented. But nothing surprising, it was supervised by the second Nazi of the country after Hitler. However, the law was effective until March 1938 when it was repealed. It would be unfair to say that no one wanted to make gasifiers in Germany at all. I.E. Pinch Company stopped testing and producing transport gasifiers in 1926 after some floundering. Germany preferred diesel. The small number of operational gasifier transport was equipped with imported French Imbert gasifiers. In 1938, only 0.3%, or 1,070, of Reich's 365,731 trucks were gasifier-powered. As I said, there was a lot of cheap gasoline, liquefied gas, and diesel. German economists calculated that if converted to firewood, a bus could run about 40,000 kilometers. That was the life cycle of a gasifier, and compared to gasoline fuel efficiency, it allowed to save only 33% of gasoline. And even though Imbert had been perfecting its firewood gasifier for more than a decade, and Linneborn was finalizing the system in Germany, the gasifiers failed to sell. For example, Imbert Köln, the largest German gasifier manufacturer in 1931 to 1937, managed to sell only 200 devices a year. Once again, a war changed everything. Imbert Köln production rose to about 6,000 already in 1940 and to about 20,000 in 1941. The center of global gasifier production now shifted from France to Germany. In 1938, there were already 1,500 wood billet and charcoal fueling stations in France for gasifier vehicles. Drivers of these vehicles were trained in special schools. The French saved 75% compared to gasoline by using firewood. 100,000 trucks, 30,000 tractors, and hundreds of river barges were in operation in France already in 2 years. In 1942, 36,000 tons of charcoal were produced in France for transport. Besides, gasifiers literally helped to survive. They produced energy for sawmills, electricity generation, stone crushers, pumping stations, etc. Because Germany was rich in lignite, a large number of gasifiers were made for this fuel. By the way, Imbert made a gasifier for German lignite in 1938. Just at that time, in 1935, when Göring supervised gasifiers, Stalin personally opened the Scientific Automotive Institute to develop the Soviet-owned automobile and gasifier industry. And not only this, but all industries in general. The USSR began its own industrial revolution, just as in Europe. It differed from the European Revolution because 5-year plans were established to accelerate industrialization. The USSR's top leadership also expected a war, and Stalin announced in one of his speeches, "We are 100 years behind the advanced countries. We must make good this distance in 10 years. Either we do it, or we shall be crushed." Whereas in Europe there were courts where any inventor, like Otto, Berliet, or Renault, could defend his patent and start a company to produce cars or trucks, the USSR abolished private property and applied its whole might through institute engineers and scientists as part of the plan. The Soviet Union began to deal with gasifiers in 1935, while in France, the first tractor ran on firewood already in 1908. There was no time for inventions and discoveries. Ready-made technologies were studied, copied, and then replicated en masse. Copies of the Imbert gasifiers, copies of the Göring-Poulin transverse gasifiers, etc. The Soviets simply copied the best and most popular designs. Production and development of gasifiers were extensive in the USSR. A lot of talented scientists improved Western models and invented their own, and, honestly, there is so much information about this period that it is enough for a separate video. I will not go into the USSR gasifier developments in this film. Let's return to the world center of gasifier thought. The first charcoal-powered airplane was launched by Ernst Winst. It consumed 34 kilograms of charcoal per hour of flight. The introduction of gasifiers could not help but cause public cognitive dissonance. The press was full of caricatures. The emergence of the Imbert gasifier in Germany gave rise to the proverb, "God invented Imbert with the rattling grate in his anger." The grate had to be shaken to remove ash. A number of world-renowned companies that are now in the public eye, such as Renault, Ford, Opel, Citroën, Peugeot, Mercedes, Fiat, Skoda, Volvo, Electrolux, and others produce transport gasifiers on their assembly lines. You probably didn't know it, but Atmos, a modern Czech solid fuel boiler manufacturer, was founded as a family company in 1935 to produce transport gasifiers.